On this episode of Supervision Simplified, we are welcoming in the new year, 2025, by keeping up with the Kardashians. Not really. I'm just kidding. We're keeping up with Amy and myself and all the things that we are planning to do for Supervision Simplified, as well as in our individual practices and consulting, all the things. So you don't want to miss out. Tune in and also give us your feedback.
Hello there and happy 2025. I am Dr. Amy Parks.
And I am Valarie Harris.
Welcome to Supervision. Welcome to Supervision Simplified. We're really excited to be back with you today. Hi, Valarie. You and I haven't even talked for we've texted, but not really talked for weeks. So
I know.
We could probably spend 4 hours, talking before we start talking. But anyway, so we know we have, as we launch into 2025, it's super, super early in the month, and we had clarity breaks in December. So that was a really intentional choice on our part to really kind of step back from all the things that we do in December and, spend time with family and friends and do the kind of holiday stuff that we like to do, but also take care of ourselves and figure out plans for this year. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to talk today about our plans for 2025, both for the podcast, but also for our individual supervision work, our individual entrepreneurship, trainings and things like that. So I already kind of wrote down a whole list of things that Valarie's up to that we were chit-chatting about, and we'll certainly add those for you as well and tell you some things to look forward to in the podcast. But Valarie, go ahead and tell us some of the exciting things that are going to be happening in your world in 2025.
Yes.
Or tell us about your clarity break first, maybe. How was that?
Yeah. It was really good. So for the past couple of years, I have had the intention to take a clarity break. And for whatever reason, I didn't take the entire month of December. I would end up taking a week here, a week there. Or I took the break and said it was a clarity break, but I still found myself involved in the business a lot, whether it be just supervision for that month. And so this year was the first year that I was actually done. So from Thanksgiving on, I was on a clarity break. Of course, if they needed me for emergencies, that was one thing. But primarily, I worked from home that entire time, just really looking at our numbers, looking at the vision of all the companies or brands, that I have, and making sure things are value aligned. And planning out a clinical calendar, which was really exciting. And along with that, being able to plan in a parallel process with Educate and Elevate so that they can scaffold together at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I took your advice and did the same thing. Although I did some traveling. I did some answering of clinical questions. I did some meetings and things like that. But in general, and I still saw a few clients, so I didn't have a total break. But I really was very intentional about being quiet, so that I feel like everyone knows this, but it's just particularly true for me that the world is really noisy. And I get very easily distracted by what other people are doing and then what is happening in my own brain. And so I really was it was really important to me to just be as quiet as possible and just kind of as low key as possible so that I could sort of hit the ground running in January. So that was sort of the same kind of thing. I didn't create a content calendar, but this is our 15th year in practice as a group practice. So that's a big deal for us. And so did a lot of data analysis and stuff like that and preparing for that state of the practice kind of conversation. And then the clinical supervision directory has a lot of exciting things happening in this year, which is really cool. So so we'll talk about that stuff. So tell us about what you're going to be doing in 2025. Tell us some of the things that are happening.
Yeah. So I do have plans to relaunch Educate and Elevate and to get really active in the Facebook group, Obviously, my personal life took a little bit of a turn last year, and so that limited my capacity. And so I'm going to re-engage with the entire group, really look at seeing what types of things they're looking for, where they're struggling. But then also, I have plans to launch like a 5-day challenge, as far as some kind of theme around Educate and Elevate, in terms of either pitching to universities and finding interns and getting the correct interns. So that will be a nice way to engage in that and actually have some value each day that can be added. And
so before you go on, before you go on though, for our listeners that don't know what Educate and Elevate is and the point of it and the positioning of it, why don't you tell us?
Yeah, so Educate and Elevate is part of my education and consulting company. It's a subset of that, but the target market for that is group practice owners who want to pivot into a teaching practice, or for group practice owners who have already had a teaching practice or have taken an intern and maybe it didn't work out very well, or they just really didn't see the value, or it wasn't profitable taking an intern when it can be. And so this really looks at taking a practice and turning it into an actual teaching model, like using that as your model of care. And then the extension of that goes into clinical supervision in terms of not just managing, that as a model, but what do the systems look like for that? How do you track that? Even metrics or supervision, like how many clients do they need to see? How do you know you have the right intern? The barriers with different types of licensure in schools, and navigating that and being able to communicate it to people who are seeking counseling, because oftentimes that's the first point of like difficulty that people hit, is they're like, well, we have this intern and they need extra hours. Would you be willing to see them? And I'm like, no one wants to be a test client. Like that's not a value add. Versus,
that's not how you position them.
So there's a way to like position it in your marketing and in the copy on the website. So really just getting clear about that and helping practice owners not just say, okay, I'm going to do teaching practice, but what does that look like in my practice? Like, what is my, and maybe it's that they niche out with that. And sometimes there's barriers with people being able to figure out how to do that. If they take insurance or if they're just telehealth only. And so we've had to navigate a lot of those different things over the years, having a lot of students and being in a town where it is a heavy military population, which means people are coming and going. So we have like mastered the art of turning clinicians over and bringing them in. And we're actually this year going to be looking at a clinician that has to leave due to the military and trying to extend our practice into another state via telehealth. So we're just open to doing all kinds of different things. So yes, Educate and Elevate is all the things around student interns, master's level clinicians, and pre-licensure, whatever it's called in various states.
And so how is Educate and Elevate going to be supporting your work around capacity? Because that's your big word I'm assuming that's going to be the word of the year for you for 2025. In a lot of ways, you're writing about it. You need to live it. If it's not your word, it should be, because you're writing about it. You're speaking about it. You need to live about this concept of capacity, particularly after last year. So I hope it's your word, but I don't know if it is or not.
Yes, it is. I feel like in 2024 also, but hey, it has taken on a new meaning in a very positive way. And I mean, I can think all the way back to even 2021 capacity. And so, my whole life has been a series of trying to maintain capacity in the midst of chaos and confusion and conflict or change, in order to keep going and building and not quitting and doing the next right thing. And so it kind of is a theme of my life in a lot of ways. It used to be self-imposed. Now it's less self-imposed and more just life being life. But either way, there will be elements of the work that I'm doing with capacity management that are going to be intertwined into Educate and Elevate. and that's going to be around systems, for instance, or how do you assess the capacity of an intern? How do you know they're ready to see clients? How do you know that your systems in your practice are actually the right systems to protect or create capacity with your clinical team? Because if you don't know a way to kind of measure that or look at that or have your eyes on that, they say measure what matters. Then before you know it, for instance, we're creating a custom clinician dashboard, and we, like a lot of practices, use multiple systems, and it can really zap somebody's capacity when they're thinking, okay, I need to be, which system do I go to for this?
Right.
Which system do I go to for that? Or which person needs a treatment plan done, and then you're having to pay somebody to put that on a calendar versus this dashboard having their whole client list right there with all these things they can select, and having direct links to here's the policy on that. So it's like an intranet, but it's more, it just works better in the long run, I think. Intranets even leave a little bit to be desired, and they just look kind of messy and not very streamlined at times. But those are things that we realized with the teaching practice, treating mostly trauma with new clinicians, is every bit of capacity you can save matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're green. My leadership team is green. Everybody is green and growing and glowing. And so we don't have seasoned clinicians that can navigate a lot of this with ease. And so it really does zap their capacity if we're not thinking ahead and looking at how all the parts work together. Yeah. And so I intend to bring a lot of things that I've learned about that into the next rollout of the Educate and Elevate Mastermind.
I think it's going to be like I think it's really fascinating that you said that about having seasoned clinicians on your team versus maybe not, because I have a number of seasoned clinicians on my team, and they definitely do balance out the greener members of our team in a lot of ways, just mostly just energetically. Just being in their presence seems to be kind of calming for many of our clinicians. And I think that that's really interesting. So as you look at that would be an interesting, I don't think that practice owners think about that when they think of bringing on interns. They just sort of, I think oftentimes they're just sort of like in a cycle that's semester related, right? Like, we're okay. Well, this is the fall of 2025, so we're going to bring on this person, rather than thinking about, well, if we have a whole team of green, clinicians, and we want to bring on a new green intern, like how can we really be the kind of practice we need to be for them at this time, or do we need to wait a year?
Yes, I think. Take how many can your system support, how much can your leadership support? I think at one time at the peak I had 5 interns, which that was a bit much, but I was seeing a full caseload of clients, and it actually was okay. My clients were pretty well conditioned at that point to having interns in the room, but what I noticed is when I scaled back on my caseload, all of a sudden the system that had been working all that time stopped working, and the interns that we had were not able to get the same like co-treating hours or the same observation hours. And a lot of that had to do with the clinicians that I had hired still being newer, not having a language to speak about that, not knowing how to introduce it, not assessing to see who would be appropriate for that, who wouldn't. So the thing that worked so well and got me where it didn't scale well. So I had to scale back and assess all the bottlenecks around that to see what didn't work and why it wasn't working, so that we could figure out how to address that so that we could rescale.
So in 2025, one of the things that we're going to be bringing to the podcast is some guests that are supervisees and or interns, people that are in the supervision process, but on the other end of that. So they're not the high capacity experienced people that supervisors often are, or in general are or should be. They are the green members of our community. And so I think that would be a great conversation as we look at this year, talking about what do they need? what does
Yeah.
that mean? What does capacity even mean to them? What does a teaching practice mean? How are they looking for that kind of environment too? Because again, if you're not intentional, and plenty of people, maybe aren't as intentional as we're sort of encouraging them to be. If you're not intentional about bringing on interns in this specific way, like how do we teach the interns to look for the right places? Because I think oftentimes they're just throwing it out, like 50 cold calls,
Yeah.
emails.
Schools get very
Right.
protective and guarded, I've noticed, and they're just trying to look out for the students. So we've had times where schools will give us difficulty because we're not letting them have, clients right away. And then normally once they see our, student development handbook, they're like, oh, okay, I see where you're going. And so they don't know what they don't know either. Because they're used to having poor sites. So, that's part of the 2025 initiative also is in writing a book around capacity and capacity management and capacity care planning. I really want and hope to get that into some universities so that we can get that in those practicum, get that in the classroom as part of the required text.
Right.
And there to be some reflective journaling and development so that it's part of the conversation ongoing. And a lot of times some schools are really good about talking a lot about self-care, or they're good at talking a lot about burnout, but they're not necessarily good at the in-between. And so, it's kind of like when you have someone that has depression. Before depression, there's not just happiness and then depression. There's a period of waning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So to me, I feel like the capacity is like the parallel of that waning process. It's like you got to catch somebody coming down and you got to figure out how to get that back up versus waiting until all of a sudden they're just crashing.
Right. And that's about paying attention. So a book is coming out around that. You're going to be doing a lot of speaking about that as well, which is going to be really great. So a lot of things are going to help us as supervisors and as entrepreneurs in the clinical mental health space really think about how we are supporting the next generation and, our current colleagues. So I think that that's going to be great. Anything else you want to add that you're going to be doing?
Let's see here. No, I think it's just important to talk about. Yeah, I think I would just wrap that piece up by saying, the whole capacity project, so to speak, is, it transcends every industry. It transcends every position in a group practice. And I think that part of what inspired it was not only just looking at my green clinicians and seeing how much they struggled with life changes, like having a baby,
Right.
and how much that affected them, or how much they then started to question, well, can I have a career and I have a family? So they didn't have what they needed to try to navigate that or figure that out or monitor it. But the other part of that is group practice owners, and how many group practice owners I've seen in the pits of just not wanting to live anymore, wanting to burn it down, and I know there's a lot out there about it, but at the same time, it's a very lonely space and a very difficult space when you're trying to grow a practice and you don't even have so much as a business degree, let alone know what to do with leadership or, and I think so much of us, we don't develop to where we are until we've already like crashed and burned and like nearly didn't make it. And so I'm hoping this can be something to fill in the gaps to where it can be a resource where you can go to it and you don't have to wait till it gets that bad.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. I get jealous of the people who are coming up and learning from us. Because I think to myself, if I only had that information, 15 years ago. So as I mentioned, Wise Family Wellness is going to be celebrating 15 years as a group practice. We are celebrating that now officially it's 2025 now, which is really, really exciting. 15 years of serving our community. And I think to myself, God, I wish 15 years ago I had what I have now. And I wish 15 years ago I had done so many things differently to sort of start us on the right path instead of us having to bump along and figure it out as we went. And I think that's exactly the reason why people need supervision. I mean, that's
Yeah.
exactly the reason why you want a supervisor, and why, even after you finish your supervision to licensure, you want to keep talking to people, because you learn from people that have had the same experiences as you. And why do we torture ourselves by reinventing the wheel? And that doesn't mean we can't be innovative, but
Right.
figure out, like, how did somebody do that, and does that feel like that aligns with what I want to do for myself? And so
Yeah.
yeah, so I feel kind of jealous of the people that are listening, because I know that they, like, I know what they're getting. I'm really glad for them.
Right. But you got to think part of, like, I know my story has been rough at times, and yet I know that it was preparation for what I can now offer to someone
Oh,
else.
absolutely.
You
Yes.
know? So it's rewarding. And like you said, 15 years is amazing. When you look at that from a business standpoint and the stats, we hit 10 years last year, and I didn't even celebrate it. That's how, like,
Right.
just survivalist we were at the time, and so I think that the other thing I just want to say, and then I want to hear about what y'all are doing, is I think there's so much crossover in a way to collaborate between other industries and ours. Like, the skill sets we have are so
Hmm.
valuable to the business
Hmm.
world. And yet I have found that by aligning myself in other, like, industries or around business people that are outside of our industry, I have really been able to normalize a lot of the things that I experience as a group practice owner that I think a lot of us don't normalize
Right.
because we just don't
You're
know.
right.
So it feels personal, it feels heavy. We don't understand what stage of business we're in and what that means or what that looks like. And so I made a conscious effort last year to just invest resources into getting around people who had scaled businesses outside of the counseling and mental health space, to really understand, like, systemically and innovation and how those things work and the stages and development. And it really helped to normalize a lot of what I'd already been through, to the point where I was like, wow, if I'd have known that then, it probably wouldn't have felt as
Right.
hard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel the same way about speaking. So before I started doing a lot of speaking, I was around a lot of speakers that were not in the mental health field at all. And so all of
Oh,
my training in speaking is around being around professional speakers, like people who command, $20,000 a talk.
there you
And,
go.
it's the same kind of concept. So, we see and know many people now who are doing a lot of really great speaking and or teaching at teaching CEs or offering webinars and things like that. And that's fantastic. And I love that. And everyone's sort of learning from each other, but there's I tell everyone, like, strategies outside of our field to figure out speaking opportunities and ways to get better at a TED talk, and ways to get better at presenting in your workshops, and engaging your audience and stuff, because I learned that from, like, master speakers and storytellers. So
Yeah,
I'm not an expert
beautiful.
at it, but I also think that I'm pretty good at it. So I think that there's a lot to be said for stepping out of your, the mental health field to see and to share what other people are doing. I really want to do more I want to do more networking with women business owners and leaders in all different kinds of
Oh,
fields. So that's
that's
that's something that I'd
you.
really like to be doing in 2025. So I'm kind of looking at
What
that.
are you doing?
Pardon me?
Tell me what. Tell me what else you're doing. I want to know what the
All right. Well,
CSD
so
is
that's what
doing.
WISE is doing. We're celebrating all year, but CSD has some really exciting things. So first of all, one of the things I should say about the CSD is it really started. The clinical supervision directory started in my idea was I didn't even need an LLC. Like, I did get one, but it was such a just throw it out there idea that was something so totally missing from the marketplace, that I just was like, I'm just going to do this thing, thinking it's this super small thing. And I remember saying to my accountant, like, do I need to get an LLC? And she's like, yeah, and a bank account and this and that. And now we are, have a team, and merch, and the logo, like all the things. And we have MBCC certification to offer live and recorded CEs. Like, it's this whole big thing. And so, but I have to say that I'm very much still in a hobby mindset, not in a
Yep.
business mindset.
I'm glad you said that. That was something you need to say in your state of the company,
Yes.
because it's what I said in mine is if I treat this business, this education consulting, like a hobby, it's going to pay like a
Yes, and
hobby.
that's
And
what,
I can't.
yeah, that quote came from a Jetta Robinson. So shout out to a good friend of ours, a Jetta Robinson, for that particular quote. And that's exactly the case. And I also never intended for it to be this big income stream. Um, and and it should be, because the fact of the matter is we give great value. We're going to continue to give incredible value, and it should be an income stream. And it should be an income stream not just for me, but for everyone that's in it, because I believe in that kind of shared resource. So the clinical supervision directory in 2025, we're going to be, the thing that I'm the most excited about is that we're going to be, well, two things, I guess. Number one is we're going to be training new supervisors for the first time ever. So we have been
Yay.
doing CEs, both live and virtual, for years. And now we actually have created a signature course for supervisors. It's 20 hours. It's going to be,
I've been saying, do it. That's what I did. I needed
it's going to be epic. And so there's a book that goes along with it. There's going to be an even bigger book coming from Pessy around this same kind of thing, but it is going to start, the book that it comes with now is going to be this one version, and then the 2.0 version will be the Pessy version that we're putting out. But anyway, it's very exciting. So that's really cool, because I get so many people who say, like, do you know a supervision training? Do you have a supervision training? Are you doing any supervision training? And I was like, no. And there are numerous ones that are at the state level. And that doesn't mean they're not fantastic, because they are great. This is this will be available nationally. Like, you can be in any state and you can take this training. Beautiful. And it's based on national supervision standards that aren't isolated to states. So I'm really excited about that. So that's the one thing. And then the second thing that we're doing is we're adding a second tier to the CSD for individuals, supervisors that want to do case consultation with one another on a monthly basis. And so we will be adding that tier, and it will allow you to have opportunities for monthly case consultation, as well as a free training opportunities and a number of other benefits. We have a conference coming up in May. So lots of really cool things come along with that tier. So that's going to be a cool thing. So, but it's interesting, because we talk about these ideas that we have as, like, entrepreneurs and innovators and everything. And it also makes me laugh when people say, why don't you do this? Have you thought about doing this? Have you considered that? And I'm like, do you actually know how complicated what you're asking us to do is?
Yeah.
Especially with
always the easy part. That's always the easy part.
The ideas are so easy. Yeah. The execution is so hard, because, like, it's funny, because I didn't even really realize it until I had a conversation with someone, but I own behavioral health technology. I was like, what?
That's right.
I don't. They're like, yeah, you do. You own behavioral health technology. You are part of the behavioral health technology world. And that's a whole different universe from what we're doing right now. And so people are like, oh, you can do this, and oh, you can do that. I'm like, no, I only have one guy in India, and he's my IT guy. Yeah. Like, I don't think I can do that. So it is
not to mention data. As this goes on further and further, the data alone that you're getting on supervisors and supervision seekers,
I know,
like, the ethical uses of that could be very impactful in different ways.
Well, right now, of course, we don't share any data or any information or anything like that, but it is really interesting.
Hub of potential there that could actually really help with some development and other things.
Well, and so that's one of the things that I think is interesting, as you're looking at outside businesses, that as I've started to talk to these behavioral health tech companies, they're just so, I just feel just tiny. They're so big, and they're doing so many things. And it's funny, because they have a conference, and I think it's in October in Phoenix or somewhere in Arizona. And, like, the sponsorship for this conference, like, to have a table, it's like $10,000 or something because these companies are so big. I'm like, people, that ain't
Yeah.
happening for us. And you know, then they were like, oh, it's okay. We have like scholarships and stuff. Like, great, because we're teeny tiny in the landscape, very scrappy.
Yes.
And at the same time, I just think it's really, there's a lot to be said for hanging in there and just
Yes.
one every day. I feel like, you know, the clarity I had in December was that every day I just do a little bit more towards it and a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more and a little bit more. I can't do a lot in any one
Yep.
day of the week ever. So I just do a little bit every day. And then I have to make a note of what I did yesterday because I'll forget tomorrow. But
Yes. And you'll be like, I'm not getting
no,
anything done. I know I'm very much that way, but it's like, what is the next right thing? What is the next right thing?
right.
And the next right thing. Before you know it, you start putting things together and you're like, oh my
Right.
gosh.
So your word for the year may or may not be capacity. My word for the year is traction because we
Ooh.
have not, like, again, I think about, so my husband owns a toy store, as you know, and he sells trains and does model trains and stuff like that. And I think of it very much as like the little engine that could just like chugging down the
Yeah.
tracks and not quitting. Because the other thing I see, this is specifically to clinical supervision directory. The other thing I see is, you know, people start and then they give up, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and that I don't want that. I don't want people to do that. I want to help and inspire people to continue to sort of keep chugging and keep going and keep trying. And, you know, I feel that way, I guess, about a group practice too, although maybe not in the same kind of way, but that you can keep going. And it's okay to pivot too. Like it's okay to make a change. It's okay to right size, you know, to be like, okay, here's my right size. Yeah.
One of the things I did was I sold my second commercial property. It was undeveloped, but at one time I thought I wanted a second location. And then I realized when my team got full in our current location, I didn't even know some of them, or I didn't feel like I knew them as well. And I didn't like that. That just didn't feel value aligned. So I knew I didn't want to do a second location. But then I thought I might pivot into a sort of like a co-op model and send people out into private practice. And then I thought, you know what? I don't really want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm making that as a thing to do because what I realized is it was a scarcity mindset. It was, well, I won't lose them if I can capture it and keep them here in this way. And then I thought, but is that what you want? Is that your vision? Like, is that long term? Does that inspire you and give you passion and make you excited? And it doesn't
Right.
at all. Like, I don't want to continue to fight the same problematic systems that are already in place. I want to be able to innovate and make an impact. And so it just didn't make sense to keep the space. And so I sold it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I owned it, I think, like 3 years. So yeah, sometimes you just have to do that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you're getting the clarity that you need,
Right.
which is part of business
Right.
and is really like something to be
Yeah,
celebrated.
absolutely. So I'm also going to, I think I'm going to try to play a little golf this year. I've never
Oh,
played before, but my parents have moved to a
nice.
community that has like a golf course. It's like a private golf course, or I don't know. Maybe it's a public golf course. I don't know. But anyway, right behind them. And I was like, okay, I'm not thinking I want to be like retirement golfer. That's not what I'm thinking. But I'm thinking I want to be like a social golfer. No,
I like
mostly
that.
because I think the clothes are really cute. But like that was my first. But I actually think it would be fun. So I'm either gonna do that. I'm gonna pick up a sport this year. Let's put it that way. I'm gonna start a sport. So it's either gonna be golf, it may be pickleball, it may be rollerblading. Like one of those, which is not really a sport, but like a different kind of new activity.
No, I get
Uh-huh.
that. I've counseled golfers and I know a lot about the body movements and the very positioning, and like I know a lot just sports psychology stuff in general, and so I know a lot about a lot of sports. I'm hypermobile and double jointed, and I am horrible at golf because my form will not I can't keep form to save my life. I can't do the right elbow, like I'm just awkward and weird. But hiking Like I live
Yes.
like 5 minutes
Yes.
from
Yes.
a great park where I just see deer, and I never knew just walking in the woods in the middle of the day, because I've been trying all sorts of things like throwing noodles at a wall to see what gives me capacity and just trying to get real creative with it. And I can work like 3 hours and then go for an hour and a half and go walk in the woods with just music and come back and chug away for another like 4 hours and feel more productive than if I'd have sat down and tried to do 7 straight hours.
Yeah.
And
What a
so
great
I
lesson.
never
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
thought hiking would be my thing, but now I'm sort of like, I'm not going to be Dawn. I'll know. I always have admired her, but I think that more and more I'm kind of liking this idea of hiking.
So I don't know anything. It's so funny because I don't know anything about hiking, and it's just walking, but in, like with a pack or in the, I don't know. But anyway, I think that that's really cool.
I just have like some Sperry boots. They're not even hiking boots, but they look cute with leggings. And and I put on my little vest or something, so I feel like I'm cute, like a little like
Uh
winter bunny that's walking around. And the elevation is just ever so slight,
huh.
and the lighting is nice for a selfie. So I'm like, I could do this. I don't know if I'm gonna be that girl that's got the whole big old pack. I might have to enlist a guy to carry the pack. I might get cute hiking
Well,
with like maybe if there's a waterfall involved, I might carry a
okay,
pack.
maybe just a
Maybe.
pack with just like a water hydrating thing and then a snack.
Yeah,
Like that's not going to be heavy, right? That will be fine.
Dawn always have to have a
Right.
snack.
Right. Right.
She
Right.
says you have to have a
Right.
snack. So
Right.
yes, that.
Well, our friend Lisa Dewey is a hiker, so she can always fill us in. I think she's coming to Virginia, like my part of Virginia, or somewhere in the on the western part of Virginia in March, I think, or April, and I think we're gonna do a hike. So, but I love
Yeah,
that you mentioned the walking. And pardon me, go ahead.
the one she did last year. I feel like I want to do that when she does it again.
Yes, 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 yes. That
But yes.
yes, and I'm trying to remember the we talked about it when she came on the podcast.
Is that right?
Called what?
Is it is it El
Yes,
Camino?
El
Is that right?
Camino. El Camino.
Okay,
Yeah.
yay.
There's an El
Yes.
Camino like in town, and then there's like a coastal Camino. So I want to do the
Yeah.
coastal Camino for my 60th
Yes.
birthday. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do that.
So I don't want. Anyway, so that's something too that I've been thinking about is all work and no play has been my motto for like a few years. Maybe even longer than that. So I said to somebody the other day that I felt like I had lost like joy. So I figure if I play, then I will have more joy. So that's something I'm also looking for. So I think it's really important though that you mentioned, and something that we talk about a lot in supervision is this idea of giving yourself a break, and that coming back refreshed, because we know so many people in our field who are seeing 30, 35 clients a week. That's back to back for 7 straight hours.
I used to be me.
And we've all been there, and it's really, really rough and really, really hard. And so, making sure that you're really intentional about your schedule, taking the break to be in nature, I think is really key, and hydrating. So I think that all those things are really important, and they should be, it's funny because we make these really extensive supervision manuals, but maybe the first 3 things should be, get in nature for 30 minutes, constantly and consistently hydrate, and, like move your body so that you aren't getting, a flat butt and you're moving around a little bit because you're not sitting all day long,
Yeah, or even a nap. Like I've told my
Yes.
staff before, sometimes you just either need like a 10-minute power
Yes.
nap, a snack, and a juice box.
Yep. Exactly.
A lot of things that can be just, AA has this thing, halt. Don't do anything if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
Exactly.
So kind of that same mindset of being able to check in and just go, you know what, I just need to step away from everything for 5 minutes and do nothing.
Yep, exactly. So lots of really cool things. And as far as the podcast is concerned, so people can look forward to, again, a lot of this stuff that we're working on, and they can be, along the ride with those things with us. But also we're going to be talking about creating supervision content calendars, because a lot of people ask us about, what do we talk about in supervision? Is there a progression, as we, move through the process of supervision as people get closer and closer to licensure? we're going to be meeting with a lot of guests that are going to be talking about different modalities of supervision, including video supervision, as well as recording supervision, and then going back through and viewing recordings with their supervisee, as well as interviewing a number of guests who are going to be talking about different client demographics. So supervising clinicians that work specifically with children, supervising clinicians that work specifically in different areas like the community services board, and or specifically high incident trauma or high risk clients, those kinds of things. We've had guests in the past that have talked certainly about grief and working with the military, and we'll continue to invite those people to come on and continue to grow those people. We'll also be talking with a number of guests that are going to be talking specifically about the idea of teaching internship and practicum at the university level, as well as supervisors at the university level, because that's a different kind of supervision in a class,
Correct.
Group versus individual. So a lot of really cool things and professional training opportunities that we'll be sharing with you throughout the year that we're looking forward to in 2025. So
yes, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up today?
No, nothing other than we just want to hear from everybody who's listening. We do know y'all are out there. We looked and we saw that there's a lot of unique listeners. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who is tuning in and listening to us. Like that means so much to Amy and I. And also we want to hear from you. We want to know what resonates, what lands, what's missing. Where are the gaps? What do you need to know more of? What do you want to hear less of? Or whatever it is, we're open, and we just appreciate so much that you're tuning in, and we want you to keep sharing it, keep tuning in, and want you to know that you're part of this, that we're building, and your voice matters, and we want that feedback.
Absolutely. We had, just for the stats, I wrote them down. We had 1,818 unique listeners since we launched our podcast last March, and we've had 3,179 downloads. So that's pretty epic to us, for sure. And we're looking to hit 1,000 a month. That's our goal for this first quarter of the year. So we're halfway there. We're really excited about that. So we're really thrilled that you are a part of this with us, and we do want your feedback. And so thanks. As we wrap up today, we want to just thank you. Thank you for tuning into Supervision Simplified. The revolution starts with you. Don't forget that we need you to subscribe and give us a 5-star review if you find us to be worthy of 5 stars, and share with your network. We're eager to hear your comments, your stories, your feedback, to really ensure that we're hitting the topics that you care about and that really are impactful in your supervision work. Keep simplifying and elevating your supervision game. Until our next episode. Bye.
Bye.